Broadcasting from Silicon Valley, California, this is Conversations with Jennylyn.
You are watching Conversations with Jennylyn, and I am so grateful to you that you keep up with me and all of these wonderful people that I bring to share with you. Today, I have, as you can see, another beauty. Her name is Gail of Gaia. She is a woman of many, many talents. So we will see how many of them we can fit into 35 minutes. Welcome to Conversations with Jennylyn, Gail.
Well, thank you so much, Jennylyn. I'm honored to be asked to be here, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Someone recommended you to me and said that I should interview you because you were making a huge difference in the world. And one of the reasons I do this is to share people's successes and people's expertise so that they can encourage or help somebody in some way. So today, let's see what we can bring to help someone, at least one person watching this show. So your
All right.
background is nutrition.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And since we are living in a time where the world is being ravaged by a pandemic, should we start with that part of your expertise?
Sure, why not? You mean speaking about the pandemic or speaking about nutrition? Or
Well,
both?
if you can speak to nutrition in terms of the pandemic, maybe you can offer some tips. Although most you never know what you may say that can help someone.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's go there then. One of the things that I would suggest from a nutritional standpoint that I think is extremely important for people is to eat as much living food as possible. And that would come under the category of raw, whatever, percentage you can consume. And I'm referring to plant-based eating as being the best. As far as I can tell. And from all the different studies and over the years, from what I've seen, I'd say that that is the most healthy way to eat. And that way you will stay more alkaline, which also helps to prevent more pathogenic growth of microbes and so on. And that's a major concern right now. So that's something that people can do to improve their overall health. And drinking, and that would be, drinking clean water, eating clean food, and I mean organic preferably, or garden grown or homegrown, farmers market, that kind of thing. So I guess starting with that initially would be, plant-based, glyphosate free, if that's possible nowadays, and trying to stay alkaline, I think is very important.
How do you respond to the belief that if you've spent your whole life doing something a certain way, your body becomes adaptable to that situation? So, eating homegrown food versus food from the grocery store. I know of people who argue that since someone, for example, I had a conversation with someone who went to Mexico and got very sick from the water.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I said, I wonder why so many tourists have gastrointestinal issues when they travel to some of these third world countries, and the residents are fine with it. And the argument was because their systems are used to it.
Well,
How
I think
would
what
you speak to that as a nutritional expert?
I would say that the chances are very likely that the water has some form of microbes in it that your body has not been accustomed to. Therefore, it reacts accordingly, and you may get diarrhea or Montezuma's revenge or whatever they want to call it. And it's because you're not used to it, and it's contains some things that you haven't run into before, whereas you were used to um, well, here we have chlorinated and fluoridated, and that's not good for you either, but it certainly does get rid of the, different microbes and so on. But definitely it's related to what you're used to, and it doesn't mean that that's a good thing necessarily. It just means you're introducing new microbes that your body hasn't been able to deal with yet, but it will. I mean, the human body is extremely adaptable in so many ways.
Okay, because I always think of that, and I think of the people who've lived lifetimes in countries where they don't put as much emphasis on organic or whatever, or not cooking
Mm-hmm.
your food, or not eating, anything that is dead, and they still live very healthy, successful lives. And this is the reason why I thought I would bring this up for someone thinking this, because I grew up in South America in a very rural area, and most of what we ate was homegrown.
Mm-hmm.
And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the people there are very healthy, but they also ate a lot of meat that they use salt to preserve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the farmers would go out hunting and they'd bring back whatever they've hunted. And their way of preservation was merely salt and the sunshine. These
Mm-hmm.
people live for hundreds of years. And
Yes.
so now, when we think of, oh, you can't eat this, you can't eat that because it's not good for your system, I wanted to ask your opinion on these beliefs.
I think there's a lot of factors that come into play there. Number one, living out in the country in a very rural area, you're not going to have the use of glyphosate on all your products. I mean, they're not sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. They are not raised by monoculture farming. The stress level for the people is substantially reduced as opposed to someone living in a big city, for example. The amount of pollution that someone is exposed to in an environment like that, all of those factors come into play. And it's not just about diet alone. It certainly is can be a major factor, but there's other factors that come into play as well, and that would be pollution and polluting the body with whether it's, and the reason we would talk about organic here is because the organic is the natural way that stuff used to be, before we started adding all these pesticides and herbicides and growing just one crop and then having to cause the use of more and more pesticides and so on as a result of doing that. So the type of living that you're referring to is actually more natural. And as far as eating meat or what have you, again, that's another thing that is dependent on other factors that would come into play. And under certain circumstances, you eat what's available and what's, your climate dictates, and your genetics kind of adapts to that to a certain extent as well.
Because at
So
the end of the day, you have to survive. So
exactly.
you'll eat what you have to eat to live. You can't starve because it's not organic, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Do you know if,
And
sorry, go ahead.
no, oh, I was just going to say, in circumstances like that, when you're out in a rural area, you don't have the kind of problems to deal with that you do when you live in a big city where the pollution is a big problem.
Yes. And so, do you know if they've done any studies? It would be great if they could, on people who live a truly organic life versus people who just eat whatever they feel like eating right now with the pandemic, to see if being truly organic and just eating raw vegetables versus cooked stuff or eating animals, if that is making you resistant to the pandemic at this time. Do you know? Do you know of any evidence?
I don't know of any studies that have actually done that. I'm just basing that on the knowledge that I have and the studies that I've seen in the past. And again, all these other factors come into play. Like, do you live in the city? Do you live in the country? What's your stress level? It's what you eat, what you drink, what you think, what you believe. All those things do come into play. And do you exercise, that kind of thing. All of that, is important to your health and well-being in general. Now, the pandemic or plandemic, as I call it, is really highly questionable as to its actual effect on statistics, like death statistics, for example. Because all of that, there are a number of professionals looking at that and saying, wait a minute, this isn't what we thought it was. Because the media has a tendency to, have an agenda and run with it and keep that narrative going. And
Yeah. I know a lot of people who've died of it. It's hit pretty close to home for me because thank God, no immediate family members, but friends that were like family members have died or their loved ones have died. So whether it was planned or whether it not occurred naturally, I know of a lot of lives that have been lost. So it makes it very sad anyway.
Is that, were they Asian? Oriental necessarily? Because some have
Yeah,
implied there's a genetic component to this. That's why I'm asking.
oh, really? Could you
Yeah.
speak to that for us?
Yeah, well, it has to do with the ACE gene receptor site, and it tends to be more, the respiratory problem tends to be greater amongst the Asians and sometimes the some of the other ethnic groups as well. And so there is that element, whether that's a factor or not, whether they receive the moxine is also a factor that has that has come into play. And death rates have actually gone up since that started.
You mean since we started giving out the jab /
Yes.
vaccine,
Yes.
the death
Yes.
toll has gone up?
Yes. And so has the incidence of the thing that the jab is for. I hate to use the word because you know why, but anyway, so that's an
I
issue
can
too.
just tell you, almost all the lives that I know of that's been pretty close to me that have been lost were before that, were before they got vaccine or the jab. But in my case, I have been ill ever since I got mine, and this is going on the 3rd week of me struggling to regain my normal energy level and feeling like I used to before I got it. So I'm really having a tremendous reaction to it. But I generally have an allergic reaction to these types of, I don't want to say the word, shots. So I don't know if that's why
Yeah.
to get to recuperate.
That's very typical.
Well, yeah. And that's why I haven't
It's
been
very
doing
typical.
shows because I just haven't been feeling well.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I believe that one of the problems that happens is that it makes some of the mitochondria dysfunctional. And that's why that's where we produce, energy, ATP, so on, and so forth. And so that could be why that's happening to some extent.
Yes. So
Hopefully
apart from
you
nutrition,
recover.
okay, so apart from nutrition, I know you're a woman of many hats. Do you want to share some of the other work that you do with us?
Oh, sure. Well, what I've been doing since I pretty much kind of left the field of nutrition per se, regardless of the fact that I have that background, is I moved into something similar to what you're doing. I host a show called Free Range, and I'm Gail of Gaia, the host. And I always invite people that I think have information to share with others that will be valuable to the listening audience to expand their horizons, whether that be with natural health or ideas, scalar energy. I believe you spoke with Tom Palladino about that. Yes. And I think that he may have a solution for some of the problems with the jab. Hopefully by disassembling certain adjuvants and so on, things that are contributing to the problems that people are having with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal. So people like that, I like to interview people like that. And Ken Rolla, he was another one. He's very interesting. He has if you don't know him, he has a website called Fresh and Alive. And
What is that? What is that all about?
Well, he had used to have or still has sprouts and different growing things that ormus that you can add to the soil to make your products grow better. And, adding the minerals back, because our soil is very deficient and has been deficient since the 40s, and monocropping makes it even worse. So, and then some of the herbicides and pesticides get rid of many of the microbes that are naturally occurring in soil. And so a lot of that is missing. And then Ken provides different products to help correct that situation. And when it is done, the people that have used them have had marvelous results with whatever they attempt to grow. That's just one of the many things. He also has, a scalar, what do you call it? He calls them hand grenades, but they're not really hand grenades. They're ormicite, they're ormus, and their help, their protection against EMF and things of that nature. So
great. How long have you been doing yours is radio? Am I correct?
Yeah, internet, YouTube, internet shows, that kind of thing. I do 3-4 shows a week sometimes, and I've been doing it for almost 5 years now, about 5 years.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and I'm kind of a novice at it. I'm not, that wasn't my, area of expertise. Obviously it was more nutrition related. It wasn't media production, but I enjoy it. And I really appreciate meeting other people and having them share their knowledge with the audience. And I've gotten very good reviews from people that they really appreciate the shows and that kind of thing. So that makes me feel good.
That's wonderful. So how did you get started doing that?
I just started. I don't know. Sometimes it amazes me. I did a couple of shows. I started with alternative health, and it was funny because I just did one with Ken Rolla, and I had done one with him when I just had started because of his information and the kinds of things that he had available. And I just went from there. And then I, had a chiropractor, alternative health people. Largely, that's not necessarily mainstream health. And then I've had Dr. Robert O. Young and Dr. Judy Mekovitz and people like that on and sharing their valuable information to the audience so that people can be armed with information. I mean, knowledge is power. And so I try to empower people that way.
As someone whose former occupation was a nutritionist, why do you think some people are so opposed to natural forms of medicine?
That's a good question. I have the only answer I can come up with is because it affects their pocketbook.
It affects your pocketbook the natural way?
No, the other way.
Oh.
I mean, if people go natural but healthy, then the people that don't use that type of medicine are, don't have as many customers. Let me put it that way. No, natural is as natural as possible is the best as far as I'm concerned.
Or do you think some of it is that people have throughout their lifetimes depended on medicine that comes in the form of a pill, injection, or
you got it,
liquid?
You nailed it.
And so
yes,
they feel that this is what they feel safe with. And a lot of times they don't trust anything else. Do you think that's some of it also?
That's a serious problem. I think it's a form of brainwashing, indoctrination that we've gotten from the medical cartel, as I would call them, that rather than having to, like, if they could have a pill for exercising, I'm sure everybody would take one. Just like if people that want to lose weight, they want a pill, or it's easier. It requires less responsibility on their part to just take a pill. Unfortunately, there's always side effects associated with those pills, and they are frequently overlooked. But it's kind of almost a mindset that people have gotten into, and it's not in their own best interests by a long shot.
So over the years as working as a nutritionist, what did you find was the most resistant with people in terms of improving lifestyles? What did you observe as the thing that was the most challenging to change about the way we live?
Well, basically, the thing that everybody would say if there was a call for a change in their diet is like, what can I eat? Nothing tastes, the change in the diet would result in food that just didn't taste good. Like healthy food doesn't taste good. So old habits die very hard, and it's very hard to get people past that. Everybody's an expert on food because they eat. That's what I used to always say. And they're their own expert as they see it. And to some extent that's true, because you know what you can tolerate and what you can't tolerate, but you are a victim of habit, okay? Because people get into certain habits that they continue on and on and on, and they don't like change. And so when they're required to change, there's all kinds of walls and resistance that goes up. And I've counseled probably thousands of patients, and that was one of the biggest ones that you would ever, run into.
One day I'd like to do a show on the psychology behind change, because there's so many things in our lives that we could improve, but we fear change. And even the things that are not necessarily serving us, we become so comfortable with them and we know that outcome. And to change
Yes.
it for an outcome that is unknown becomes a block immediately for some people. And
Oh, definitely. Most people.
I have to say, I'm a daredevil. I left everyone I knew and moved there in a marriage, and the only person I knew here was my husband. So I am not afraid of change.
Neither am I.
But the unknown is sort of what motivates me.
Uh-huh.
It's like,
I think that's a good thing. That's probably.
I go with trust. I'm trusting that this outcome is going to be a great one, because the intention associated with the choice. I intend it to be better.
Well, that makes sense.
But I don't know that
Better.
everybody
That's good.
has the ability to do that, or even believe that they can do that. I'm sure we can all do it. And sometimes you intend something one way, but it's not the way it's meant to be. And so your intention may not necessarily serve you. But I embrace whatever I encounter when I make the attempt. So what would you want to leave with my viewers today? What do you think it's an important message that you want to get out there today that people should be aware of?
I think people need to be open to change. Change can be viewed as a good thing.
Yes.
And I think in this day and age, it has to be viewed as a good thing. And your intention should be to help others, to participate in helping others, in bringing us all a better world through helping each other. I think that's really critically important. I really do. And if people did that, just practicing kindness, random kindness to people, those kinds of things are the kind of world we'd all be much happier in.
Yes. And when you were a child growing up, did you know you wanted to specialize in nutrition? And where did the motivation to do that come from?
No, I can't say in all honesty that was my original intention. I kind of fell into it more or less because what happened when I got to college, I liked the sciences. And unfortunately, the college that I went to, it was kind of industrial education for the guys and more like home ec or nutrition for the girls. And so there was some of that came into play there. So I kind of, went towards the nutrition and there was more science involved, more chemistry and biology and stuff. And I enjoyed that a lot, but I can't say that I started out with the intention of going into nutrition, because since that time, I also, I did at one point apply for medical school, and I was already over 30 years old at the time. And I was told I needed to take some physics classes, which is interesting. I never did, but they say that physics has changed a lot and isn't all true and so on. But then later I wanted to go to naturopathic medical school, and I spent a couple of years there, and then I ran into some financial difficulties. So it's just been, I'm a continuing professional student, you might say, in many ways. And so whether it's in school or out of school, I'm always learning and moving forward in whatever way I can.
But aren't we all? I mean, every single person that I sit across from, when I have one of these conversations, I learn something from every single person.
That's exactly how I feel.
And I always think that, you know what, it was worth it, even if no one else got something from this. I did. So it was not a waste of time. But I feel that life is an education. You're never done until you're done with life, because every single day, even if you're not in a learning institution, just going through life teaches us lessons, and it should.
Exactly. I mean, I've even gone so far to say, I mean, it's not necessarily an educational institution that you can learn something from. You can learn something from a homeless person on the street. I mean, that I believe that firmly, because everybody has something to offer. Everybody has certain experiences that they've learned it from, and they can share with you. And I think that's important.
I agree with you. And I know that you're not currently practicing as a nutritionist, but based on when you were and what is happening now with life, because it's so confusing. One time you hear, drink a glass of red wine, it's very good for the heart. Next time you hear, don't drink red wine, no alcohol is good for you. Drink a cup of coffee, it's great for you, it helps women with breast cancer. Don't drink coffee.
Okay.
So, as a consumer or as a human being who is looking to this industry to guide us, we're all over the place. I remember when I was a young girl, they said, don't drink Kool-Aid. It causes cancer. Don't use lipstick. It causes cancer.
Cancer.
It's okay to use lipstick. So, we never really know. When I'm in doubt now, I Google, let me see what's the latest research on whatever. But then Google is not always the most reliable source.
I was just going to say that. Yes, because now we're being censored, and they determine what they will allow you to find, and that's a major problem. But I agree with you. I think the idea is to confuse and confound people so that they don't think anything matters, and that's part of an agenda for more nefarious people, to confuse and confound people so that they don't think anything matters when in fact it does. And
so when you were practicing and now you still hold to the same beliefs that you had about the best source of protein and carbohydrates, or have you over the recently changed some of what you were telling people?
I changed a lot of what I was taught.
Okay, share.
A lot of what I was taught. For example, I'll give you an example. High cholesterol. What does that really mean? That means, in my opinion, from what I've learned in recent past, that person needs to detoxify. Their body is toxic, and the response to that toxicity is raising the cholesterol levels. Whereas I actually, at this stage of the game too, I am a firm believer that anyone should actually be doing some form of detox on almost a daily basis, whether it's a detox tea, whether it's a lemon alkaline drink, um, anything of that nature, because we are exposed to so much, from heavy metals and chemicals. It's just over taxing to the body, and it interferes with normal metabolic pathways, um, because those things get in the way and they accumulate in the body over time, which is why as we get older we have more problems. And so a number of things like that. They used to say, like chlorophyll is very important, alkalinity is very important, and that's going to just be easier to get or accomplish with a more plant-based style of eating. And I'm not trying to just knock eating, meat either, per se, but I was raised like everybody else, or most Americans anyway, that, meat, potatoes, and vegetables was, the staples of the diet. Whereas now I've moved away from meat, and I vacillate between vegetarian and vegan. But and the health related, I mean, you can be, I think that an important point here is that regardless of whether you're eating vegetarian, eating vegan, or eating or carnivore or herbivore, you can have an unhealthy diet on any of those levels. If you have a lot of processed foods, if you don't combine certain things for your protein sources, and I don't know, I've seen people that are vegans that are unhealthy because of the choices that they make with their diet. And I've seen it with, whether it's, you drink a lot of soda, or you drink a lot of, or you drink fluoridated water instead of having pure clean water. And there's so many different things that affect us that pollute our bodies and interfere with our body's ability to function at their highest level.
Mhm. So you are vegetarian now. I feel like my brain has been trained to believe that if there isn't some form of animal protein or fish in my diet, that I haven't really had a meal. And
That's indoctrination. It really is.
No, but it's my brain, because I've tried. I thought, okay, I'm going to be a vegetarian and I can eat the whole table full of vegetables, but I still feel like I haven't had a complete meal if I don't have some chicken or fish. Was it easy for you to become?
No, it was not. It wasn't easy. And in fact, I felt when I was giving up meat, I felt like I was addicted to it. I really did. It's like, why am I craving that? It does go away in time. It does go away in time. But initially, I can relate to exactly what you're saying.
How long did it take you to be able to remove it completely?
Well, one probably a couple of years. A gradual. Yeah, I would say, yeah, because I transition, and that's what I recommend to people too, is to transition. Don't try to do it overnight. It won't fare well. So try to, make substitutions and to transition and to cut down. Don't immediately cut out, just cut down and then start to cut out little by little. That's what I strongly suggest, because I felt the same way. I felt I must be addicted to this. What's wrong with me? And they have
one of my favorites is Pavlov on the dog. I mean, this is a dog, right? And look at his reaction every time he rang that bell. I think that our brains and our bodies get programmed to some of our habitual behaviors and attitudes, and it's very, very difficult to untrain it. We are almost out of time. We're down to our last minute. What haven't I asked you that you want to make sure that people watching this learn from you?
Care about what you put in your body. Care about what you think, what you drink, what you say. what you believe. All those things are important factors that contribute to overall good health. And eat clean and drink clean as much as you possibly can. And think clean too.
Exactly. It starts there, right? With a clean mind and thought. I am so
Yes.
grateful that I got to meet you and was able to share this time with you. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Oh, I definitely did, Jenny. Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. I hope I was able to provide something of some value to somebody.
I'm sure you did, without a question. And I thank you so much for continuing to watch Conversations with Jennylyn. When a conversation is all you need to be inspired, and I'm sure you learned a lot from Gail. I have. I know that nothing is wrong with me, that I just can't give up meat and fish. That it takes a lot of effort. So if
It
you are
does.
someone trying to become a vegetarian, keep on trying. You will eventually get there.
Exactly. Exactly.
And if you've enjoyed this segment, please like and subscribe and share it with someone that you think might benefit from it. And I will see you next time. Thank you.
Broadcasting from Silicon Valley, California, this is Conversations with Jennylyn.